You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hi, I'm Effie Bayman, lifestyle and entertainment reporter at the Batuta Advocate, and I'm joined here with editor Clancy Overall.
Thank you for having us. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work we do at the Batuta Advocate. There might be a few internationals here who are unfamiliar with our conservative rural journalism, but we got a fluid operation, and that's certainly, easy to see in our reporting. We could bounce, but I mean, we have been told we have an international audience, but I don't understand it because I don't know how anyone in Buffalo, upstate New York, could in any way relate to our stories about hot mess Gladys. But we do have an audience where the expats live, and some complete randoms. But countries like Singapore and Hong Kong and Tasmania are foreign to us in a way as well, because we are, at the end of the day, slack-jawed, rural, I guess you'd say detached deplorables is some of the commentary we've been seeing this week. No one could imagine that we'd be enlightened enough to cover, some of the more refined topics that we do cover. Like today, one of the headlines on the Batuta Advocate read, Brisbane mum might be a little bit biased, but she thinks the Poncianas at full bloom shit all over the jacarandas just quietly. And seems some people down here can relate to that. That's very niche Queensland content. In fact, we don't know much about Sydney, other than, of course, all of the political hoo-ha and the cops that murder people, but we don't know much about this place. We know the Olympics was very fun. We know what's happening here in Sydney this week is trying to recreate that kind of energy, which, I don't know, it's kind of hard to do when ecstasy is no longer being manufactured in garages. But, the place is still vibrant and fun. But it's hard to know this place because Melbourne has a thing. Melbourne certainly has an identity. Queensland has an identity. And Sydney is the middle ground. It's obviously the biggest city, but what is it to be from Sydney? That's the question. She's looking for a man down here. She's having far more trouble than you'd imagine.
I heard Coogee Pav is the place you go to find a nice...
Couple bra boys.
Yeah.
It's really hard to kind of put your finger on. Is Sydney... Sydney felt like at one point it was a very working class city. The suburbs of Redfern and Pyrmont and Ultimo actually rang true across the country. We knew those suburbs, but nowadays obviously it's been gentrified with a blowtorch, and all of those cultural precincts have been effectively heavily restricted by various government interventions, state lockout laws, even the pandemic lockdowns, you could argue, were kind of put in place to hurry along things for developers. But I do think Sydney does have a voice, and I do think it has a style and a format. But for us, we've only really learned about that shit through film as Queenslanders. And even people from Sydney can't really tell you what their favourite Sydney film is. There's a few favourites, and I'm not going to say them because we're going to dig into this today. As I said, it's quite fluid, the Batuta Advocate, and we decide what we're doing on the fly. Today we decided we're going to interview what I would describe as a cinephile, an absolute film buff from Sydney's inner west himself, Alexei Toliopoulos. Thank you for joining us.
I'm very excited because every conversation I've had with you, any sort of obscure movie that I mention, you know it.
Yes, I know every single thing about film. There's not a movie I've not heard of.
Well, I did catch you out one day.
Okay, maybe there's a few times I've been caught out in my life.
I said you didn't know that Terrence Howard of
Hustle and Flow
fame had actually played Nelson Mandela in a little-known film.
Yeah, I did not know that. About Winnie, his wife.
Winnie, his wife. Wow. That's the only time I've ever caught this man out, and it was probably...
Did anyone else in the room know that Terrence Howard played Nelson Mandela in a movie? Not one soul in
It's
this
probably
room knew.
they're trying to erase it from history. So,
Did you have to go flagellate yourself after that one?
I
Yeah.
had to torture myself for 3 hours
Yeah.
by watching the movie, and then I could ingest the entire knowledge of it.
now, Alexei, he said he knows everything about every movie, and he's kind of selling himself short because he also knows how it got funded. He knows why you can't find that film on streaming services anymore because the rights are tied up related to some deal that happened in Chicago in 1960 whatever. He knows any of that. When he recommends a good film, he'll often say, "Actually, have you got a VHS player?" Yeah. Like that's what we're dealing with here. So.
He's kind of like Quentin Tarantino, but maybe not into feet.
Well, you know, the human body's a fascinating creature, you know? I'm excited by every single aspect of the human body. So.
Yeah, and in cinema,
You see a lot of bodies.
you see a lot of
You
body in
do.
Australian cinema.
Yeah.
SBS late night.
Absolutely.
I learnt a lot.
SBS, sex, boob, soccer. But we're got an SBS baby here, ESL household. Yeah. We learn a lot of things. I find Australian film, and this is just me speaking, has had successes in niches, in genres. Queer cinema, particularly, I feel like we definitely, punch above our weight around the world. That may be because of, we have a queer capital in the shape of Sydney. We've had a lot of cool ethnic kind of post-war migration community stories. I'm hoping you're going to discuss all these today, Lexi. What we've asked this man to do is count down 10 to 1, the 10 best Aussie films set in Sydney, according to Lexi.
Yeah, it's been tough whittling them down because I do adore Australian cinema. It is true. I love Australian cinema. I think we've got to celebrate it every single day. You've got to wake up and chuck on a beautiful Blu-ray of The Last Wave or something to kick your day off, and then come back home and chuck on a little something for mum, you know?
Yeah.
And by that I mean probably like Lantana.
Yeah.
Mums love Lantana.
What is it?
Mums absolutely love Lantana.
Colosimo or La Paglia? Which
I
one
think
is
it's
it?
the two-factor of Colosimo and La Paglia. You
Yeah.
get the two of the greatest...
The bookends of Italian hunks.
The two of the greatest hunks. You got, and they're different style of hunk.
Yeah.
You know, La Paglia, he's a beautiful little pocket rocket.
Yeah.
But Colosimo, he's a stallion.
Yeah.
He cannot be stopped.
Yeah, he is.
One of the great stallions of Australian cinema.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. And it's already quite an emotive discussion. So let's
We're already feeling
let's get
things.
this thing underway with number 10.
Number 10, okay. I want to pick for number 10. I call this generic city. Generic city because Sydney, in the grand tradition of places like Toronto around the world, it stands in for global cities very often. And there's one movie in particular that does it great, but you've got examples like the Power Rangers movie, Babe 2, Pig in the City.
Absolutely.
Sydney stands in beautifully for everything else. But I would say the greatest example of it, and it's a movie that I feel so much pride when I see it, is the Matrix trilogy.
Okay.
I would say the Matrix trilogy, it's one of the great Sydney movies.
Yeah. Martin Place.
Martin Place, the woman in the red dress, I look for her every time I'm there. I need to be distracted by that woman one day. But, even like the finale of the whole series takes place in the Botanic Gardens.
Yeah.
And I think that's just beautiful.
And we had Keanu Reeves was obviously staying in the toaster, getting around on a motorbike and just ploughing natives by evening.
Zipping around.
I think he had a good run here.
Yeah, we've probably got a few Keanu teenagers around.
Yeah.
A few little readlings
I reckon
around.
the Gatsby teenagers would be
they're
popping up now too.
They've just started the HSC, those guys.
Yeah. Did you hear Leo's in Backroom?
The Matrix as well. My favourite Sydney moment in The Matrix is during probably the iconic sequence in all of The Matrix. It's Neo. He's leaning back. He's doing that beautiful lean back. He's dodging bullets. And in the background, you can just see the Telstra logo. That's humongous on a building. And I think that there's something about that where I feel a churning in my body when I see that. I feel hometown pride.
Yeah.
That's my dream as well. If I could go into any simulation, absolutely, I'll go back to Sydney, 1998, 1999, that millennium cusp. That's where I'd love to go back to.
Yeah, and just get a run as a runner or a
fluffer.
A fluffer.
I mean, become my own father or something like that with me as children. Something.
That's a great film. Back to the Future. Anyway,
I think that's a hot take coming in number 10, The Matrix. I'm excited to see what's next.
It's also, it just goes to show how we told Alexei before this, you make your own rules, what is and isn't a Sydney film. A Sydney film could be a film filmed here where Sydney is playing a generic globalist city, or it could be a trilogy, he's also pointed out.
I'm going to be breaking a lot of rules today. I'm like a here do cinema style, anything's a movie if I choose it to.
Okay, yeah, well, you make the rules, buddy. Number 9.
Number 9, good lord, I'm already freaking out. Okay. Number 9, I'm actually going to go for a rarity. This is a real rare movie. It's a movie I discovered when I was back in film school from 1983, an Australian filmmaker called Hayden Keenan, and it's a movie called Going Down. Has anyone seen Going Down in this room? Not a soul. Yeah, it's rare.
Don't want to interject, but is this one of those ones I was saying from queer cinema?
It kind of has a little, I would say there's queer elements to it for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yes, there are gay people. They exist in real life and movies. Get used to it.
But it's not about, the whole film isn't about blowjobs.
There's some stuff for straights in there too. Everybody can enjoy this beautiful movie.
We're getting forgotten. That's great.
You see a couple of breasts.
There's a boob.
There's
Excellent.
a boob or two. And heck, there might even be a pecker in this movie.
All right.
I think there might be a pecker.
I think Australian film law allows flacids, not
Yeah, no erections.
What is it? You can't go past.
Half mast.
You can't. Yeah.
I think it's like probably
9 o'clock.
38 degrees or something.
Yeah.
If I get higher than that. But Going Down, it's from 1983. It's kind of new wave, Australian cinema new wave meets like the music of new wave 1980s kind of vibe.
What does new wave mean?
It means like Renaissance. It's like a different way to say Renaissance,
Okay,
I guess. So it's kind of like the Australian film Renaissance where you had like, your Peter Weirs and stuff like that. But Hayden Keenan, not that well-known filmmaker, but he's fantastic. He's left a real imprint. And this film in particular, I remember discovering it in film school. And it is, to describe it's almost like proto-girls, where it's about a one night out of these 4 young women, and one of them is about to go to New York the next day. Right. They have like one last big blowout night in the town. They all get separated. They all have different stories. And the movie begins quite naturalistic. It's like a share house movie. You see them starting a share house. Esmond Storm is in it, who is probably best known as the teacher principal on Around the Twist, and he was like the writer Around the Twist.
Of course, how could I forget?
Yeah, he plays like a junkie author, a junkie writer, and so it's like these 3 young women, they're going out on the town, and it starts very naturalistic, and as the night progresses and things get wilder, things get weirder, it becomes a little bit more expressionistic, a little bit more surrealistic, kind of also like the Scorsese film After Hours. Like it really captures like this nocturnal landscape of Sydney. You've got great like little run-bys like Bondi Pavilion, Darlinghurst, lots of like King Cross. And you kind of see like a lot of this creative team would actually go on to make Round the Twist.
Yeah, right.
And so you see like a lot of like the kind of like expressionistic surreal stuff that show would really, capture, young people's
millennial handbook, really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like every person I know in comedy, we all like, surrealists because Around the Twist exists.
Same.
And I would say there is a new restoration of this. It was hard to find. I had to buy a DVD copy from the director's website twice because I lost it when I was moving. So it's hard to find, but there is a restoration. They had a little work in progress screening of it last week at a Bondi Film Festival. Yeah, I know everything. I'm
you don't.
I just reveal like how
Get your notes app out if you are a film buff, because some of this is going to fly by. When we eventually
pens and paper at the ready.
Yeah, well, when we start getting moving on this list, we're 2 in. Number 8.
Okay, I'm going to do a cheeky tie. A cheeky little tie.
Okay, I've already got a tie.
I'm going to break rules really fast, otherwise we'll be stuck. A tie. I'm going to go 2 films by one of my very favourite filmmakers, Gillian Armstrong. She made like My Brilliant Career, many great films, but the 2 that I love, that I think are the 2 of the very best Sydney movies ever, is her kind of fantasy musical comedy Starstruck.
Right.
which is about a young girl who has dreams of being a star, dreams of being a pop singer, and then it's a musical about that.
Okay.
And the finale takes place at the Opera House, but she lives in the Harbourview Hotel in the Rocks.
Okay.
And so it's just, I think it's one of the most cinematic Sydney has ever looked, because it's just so vibrant, such beautiful colours. And it's just, as well, it's got that new wave soundtrack. Like, it's just got...
Renaissance.
Yeah, Renaissance. You got, like, Mental as Anything and stuff on there.
Nice.
The music is by The Swingers.
So it's like a Reg Mombassa Sydney.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Reg Mombassa Sydney. And that, like, LP has got real Reg Mombassa style, like, designs all around it. But it's a great musical score as well.
Okay.
Just really, really fun. She also made another movie.
Is this the tie?
This is the tie.
Okay.
So this is the tie. We're getting the tie out of the way early. I mean, we did begin with a three-way tie between one film franchise as well. But the other movie is this movie called The Last Days of Shay Nu, which is, the book is set in Melbourne. And it's written by Helen Garner, and then they adapted it to Sydney for film.
Yeah.
And it is set in like the Glebe Foreshore, Wentworth Park area.
Okay.
And it's basically about a little family. And of course, it's a 90s era Sydney movie. It's all about an affair. Affair happens in it.
Yeah.
And you've got the great...
A lot of body hair.
Lots of body hair.
Yeah.
You've got the great Bruno Ganz, who's a German actor playing his French guy, JP, Jean-Paul. And he wears a beautiful stripy French shirt throughout it as well. But it's like, that's the area. I went to school in that like Glebe Foreshore area.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, you love this.
I love this. It's my favourite Alexei story.
I went to school at Blackwater Bay, which is like right near the fish markets. And I used to jig school and go have like lobster mornay's for lunch. And that's like probably the most like the easiest way to describe who I am. A little cosmopolitan fella. Used to love getting my little baguette, a little lobster mornay, something like that. I would go get a couple of oysters and then go back and do English class in the afternoon.
The teacher thought he was smoking weed. You have to try the lobster mornay at the fish market.
It's exquisite, sir. It's exquisite. I don't know if they're still there. I don't know what they've got. But my uncle also is a fishmonger that works there, so I have to dodge him as well.
Number 7.
Number 7. Okay, this is a big one that I love. This is an Ozploitation movie from 1975 by the director Brian Trenchard Smith. He did like BMX Bandits and stuff like that. It's a movie called The Man from Hong Kong.
Right.
And it is such a ripper. This is if you've got a big bunch of mates, you've got some beers, you're doing something kind of wacky, this is the absolute one to chuck on because it just absolutely kicks ass. It's a martial arts movie set in Sydney. We've got Jimmy Wang Yu is the lead. He was kind of like the heir to the throne when Bruce Lee passed away. And originally this movie was meant to have Bruce Lee. Brian Trenchard Smith was going to Hong Kong to meet him. As he lands, he sees a newspaper announcing his death. So it's like in a very specific point in history that this film gets made. And they kind of pitched this as like a Hong Kong James Bond movie.
Right.
So James Bond is in Sydney, but he's Hong Kong, and he's trying to solve like this drug ring thing. And then the villain in the movie is literally played by James Bond, George Lazenby. He's like the big villain.
Wow.
And
I was hoping for a bit of Asian Pacific flair.
yeah, we got a little bit of a relation
South by
there.
Southwest Sydney.
Yeah, and the way that I love this movie is like great action sequences, beautiful martial arts stuff, great stunt work. But the way that Sydney is portrayed in it is so funny because there's a moment where very early on the cops are going to meet this guy. And the cops are Roger Ward and Hugh Keays-Byrne, who are like from Mad Max, great stars of Australian cinema. And like, yeah, we'll meet you at this cafe. And they get to the cafe. The cafe is literally the Opera House. They just use that as the backdrop for this cafe. Like, yeah, we're at this cafe. And there's like fight sequences, like and chases happening around the National Art Gallery and stuff of New South Wales. So it's just like great. Like, I would say the only thing that like has captured that in Sydney since is absolutely, and maybe I'll do a cheeky tie in here as well.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 2.
Okay.
That's the great action movies of Australian and Sydney cinema. And Mission Impossible 2 rocks because you never see
I gotta move on.
you never see an action movie where you see a Ford Falcon used as the chase vehicle. That's awesome.
I do think that was pretty
You
smart.
love those Ford Falcons.
The Ford
for sure.
Falcons. Yeah, they didn't really have much to pick from in the stunt department.
No, you got those Ford Falcons. And I also love that it's like, yeah, we're doing deals, and it's like these big espionage things, and you got like the ugly pink Aussie money, like, being like it's like, okay.
Some 20s, some lobsters.
Yeah, a couple of lobsters. Lobster morning. That's a 20 with a 50 on top.
He's good. Number 6, please. Alexei Toliopoulos, the Greek freak of cinema.
All right, I'm gonna go. It's a beautiful movie called Two Hands.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the first applause break. Finally, movie people know. Yeah, Two Hands. Great gangster movie. Great crime movie. The best monorail picture Sydney's ever had.
Yeah. It's the only one I ever got, really. It wasn't there long.
Not very long, no. But it's also like, I love to see the cross look like that.
Yeah.
Before it was too sanitized.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I love to go get scared there.
Yeah.
I used to love it.
Yeah.
I used to work in the cross just before lockout laws at a video store, yes. So, not that freaky, but it was.
Played it on the
freaky.
tapes. Yeah. Love that. Two Hands is a ripper. Rose Byrne, 18 years old, wearing an op-shop dress. Done on a budget.
Done a great budget.
Yeah.
Great budget. And like so many great people. Heath Ledger, my God. Probably the best actor like Australia's ever produced.
Yeah.
And then you've got so many people. Like, I don't know, I just love that movie.
Brian Brown, there's some
Love
rippers
Brian
in there.
Brown.
The hungry, thirsty guy from the Oak ad. Yeah. Number 5.
God, number 5. Ay. Okay. I will probably go The Last Wave. The Peter Weir movie, The Last Wave.
Yeah.
It is like apocalyptic film. I think Australians have like a real fascination with the apocalypse. And this is like before we had the language to talk about it, but like a climate, a cli-fi movie, if you will, like a climate fiction, where this white man experiences a dream that is connected to an indigenous man played by David Gulpilil, and they find like this kind of cosmic connection with each other, and through the dream that they share, they see a vision of this wave coming to basically wipe out the world.
All right, we've seen a few big wave films in recent years, but this was the first, I'm guessing.
Yeah, this is definitely up there, and I think it's a really interesting take of using two different philosophies or mythologies to explain and to understand the end of the world from two different cultures. From an indigenous culture and from European culture, and to interpret
so
the
basically
event.
We caused this and we warned you. Those two interpretations of the end of the world. Yeah.
Basically, it's very interesting, and it's like an early example of like a filmmaker like Peter Weir collaborating with indigenous filmmakers and indigenous people to tell a story.
Oh, heaven forbid, an indigenous technical advisor.
Yeah. I think it's an early example of that.
Yeah, right.
And I think, it's a good point to look back at that to see like how far we've come with how no longer it's not just collaboration, now it's about telling their own stories as well. Yeah, it's very, very interesting film. Love that movie.
Last Wave.
The Last Wave.
Number 5.
It's a documentary, babe. A little documentary, a factual film.
New rule.
Well, docos are films. You want to say a doco is in the movie?
It's a movie.
Well, what's the length?
At 93 minutes.
Yeah, that's a movie.
I didn't know that off the top of my head. I didn't look that up. It's a movie called Rats in the Ranks. Has anyone seen Rats in the Ranks?
Oh, it's Leichhardt Council?
Leichhardt Council. Robin Anderson and Bob Connolly. Two of the best documentary filmmakers in Australia ever. They like pioneered observational documentaries here in Australia.
Oh, they did that other one about the racist cops in Redfern.
I don't know that one, but they did a movie called First Contact about Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, right.
And that they were nominated for the Academy Award for that.
Right.
But this movie is about Leichhardt Council. This guy Larry Hand, who's just like. How would you describe the guy, Larry Hand?
I would a brazen but charismatic crook, which we know the political class of New South Wales is stacked with. But this guy's pretty damn good.
And he was the mayor of Leichhardt in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Good, except for the fact that he let everyone in the council get mic'd up and allowed a camera to roam around to see everything he was doing. Yeah. That's what blew my mind. It was similar to the one that he did with the with the Redfern cops, which I'll remember that name in a second. Cop It Sweet, that's called.
Yeah.
If you want to see an brazen insight into why we maybe got that referendum wrong over the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, so docos are now in the mix.
I just think this is a fascinating movie because it's like you get a real insight into like the machinations of small community politics, and this guy, he's like such a I guess
It was great that he wasn't Italian
Yeah,
for Leichhardt at that time. They
That's a
kind of
great
had a bit of a reputation. It was good that the lead crook wasn't Tony Soprano-esque.
But he's got a Tony Soprano-ness about him, if you will. He's quite suave.
Yeah.
But it's a great... they filmed for a long time, and you just go, holy shit, they must have forgot the cameras were there, and
Yeah.
stuff they talk about. And it's like this kind of performance aspect where he gets off on like being kind of charismatic and
Yeah.
big and like showing off to, his constituents and stuff.
He lets them record him on the phone talking about shit. It's...
Does he keep the job afterwards when the movie came out?
It was, you know what? It was a time before our current political climate where you could just say, all of this evidence presented towards me is fake. I don't know how he met his demise, and we won't spoil it. But nowadays you can just say, oh, that's just leftist media rubbish. It's not true that I made that deal on camera with a microphone on my chest.
It's AI.
Yeah, it's AI.
I've been deep faked.
Number 4.
Number 4. Okay, I'm going to go... Oh, God, this wasn't even originally on my list, but I've been thinking about this movie a lot. It's a horror movie, a found footage horror movie, 2011. It's called The Tunnel. And
Found footage, explain that, because that's
So-
assumed knowledge.
it's like a faux documentary, basically.
Oh, okay, so we're talking...
Like the witchcraft one?
Yeah, Little
Yeah,
Blair
Blair
Witch
Witch
Project.
Yeah.
This one, it's presented more as a documentary.
Okay.
So it's like, the premise is like these, basically a current affair style journalists. There's a story that the New South Wales government is going to the tunnels beneath St. James Station and stuff that are now filled with water, and they're going to desalinate and purify that water to help with the drought or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's going to be, that water is going to be used for drinking,
Political
for
innovation.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And there's all these rumors about it. So these current affair journalists go down into the tunnels, and when they go down there, they meet an entity of some kind.
Okay.
As a creature of some
Is it a
kind.
lizard person?
You don't get a clear look. I can't really tell you, but
What's
it's a kind of freaky fella. It's definitely a freaky fella, I would say.
What's that thing they have in England in the sewers? The lard.
Of fatbergs.
They know fatbergs.
What's fatberg?
Look it up on Google.
Look, Google it. Google the pictures.
Fatberg?
Fatberg.
Fatbergs.
When all the fat meets up in the sewers. And
Oh,
becomes
whoa.
monstrous.
Oh my god.
You can see how like some sort of entity could come out of that system, you know,
Yeah.
apart from turtles that know how to do martial arts
Yeah,
and have Italian names. I love pizza.
They do great pizzas down there. Great pizzas.
Where are we then? So now are we? That was
top
4.
three? Are we
Yeah,
up
we're
to
3.
Oh my
closing
gosh,
in. This
top
is where it
3.
gets testy for Alexei.
Oh my gosh, I've blown a few big loads already. It's hard to pick some great ones left at the end. My God
Told you,
almighty.
he's a cinephile.
Ay, 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 ay. Okay, what do we got? Well, these maybe a little high, but I'm gonna another little 1, 2. The Combination and See the Boys.
Oh yes.
Yeah, these are 2 cool pictures.
Levanthian crime dramas.
Yeah. These, I think they're both really interesting. They both come out around the same time.
Yeah.
The Combination, that was such a just a point in history
Yeah.
where we were post Cronulla riots. But there was still so much tension.
Yeah.
And then that film, they were scared that there was going to be like fights in the cinema. And
Well, there
stuff
were.
like that.
There was. I think people were getting. I think there was knife play at certain screenings of that show, and I know that those haircuts at that time was so obscene. But now it's like your textbook NRL star has the kind of papali side shaved off mullet. But it was
I wanted that so bad. I was watching that movie. My God.
It was an abrasive look in the 2000s, and I found that I feel like that might have been the moment for Firas Durrani. That was his jumper. He later played Johnny Broom in Underbelly. But the fun
and also
fact...
the guy in that Single Dads TV show.
Yes, House Husbands.
House Husbands.
There was also the director of that was Hungry Thirsty Guy from the OK.
Yeah, David Fields.
It always
David
comes
Fields.
back to him.
Yeah.
Dave Fields, which was great because nowadays a film like that would be told by a Lebanese writer, Lebanese director, but I feel like Dave Fields was doing one for the West as a Westie who'd come up, probably facing a lot of adversity in cinema because of his Australian cricketer accent. He was able to do one for the next generation coming through, which at that time the stigmatised kids were the Lebanese kids, and very much so, as you said, post Cronulla riots. It was Public Enemy #1.
And I was a Greek kid, like growing up around that time, and it was like truly one of the most scared I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, since then, probably more personal fears, like career-based stuff.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like, I was like, oh my god, like my art teacher got bashed in a Cronulla riots, like so. Or he said he did, I don't know. Maybe he just got black eye somehow one day around that time. But
so it kind of, I mean, that was scarier at that age than quicksand.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my second.
Bermuda Triangle was
Bermuda
a big
Triangle was a big one.
I was terrified of that thing. I was worried it was going to grow.
Yeah.
That's what I thought climate change was. The Bermuda Triangle was getting bigger. But George Basher was the writer of that film, who's also plays the older brother in The Combination.
Yeah, and he was technically he was almost like an experienced extra in the sense that he was an ex-con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And David...
So Cedar Boys, tell us about that, because that was the unsung Lebanese drama at the time.
Yeah, it was more, I would say, a little bit more mean streets, like Scorsese kind of vibe. Right. It's like about 3 boys of Lebanese descent that kind of slowly get swept up in that world of crime, like kind of like drug deal. But it's also a lot about the culture clash between young Australian people and young Middle Eastern people. Yeah. But I think it's like you said, unsung. I think Cedar Boys is really good. Maybe I like it even more than The Combination. Okay. But I will also give another shout out.
The opposite of a tie.
Okay, well then we'll just knock one of the other spots out. Yeah. It's inches above.
Now we're doing 11, okay.
But David Field as well, he's in a band with another great Australian character actor, Jeff Morrell.
Yep.
And I just think that's awesome.
Number 2?
2, yeah.
We will count that as a tie.
Yikes. Okay, number 2. I don't know. Let's just skip number 2.
No.
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm jumping around.
You're worried about giving someone silver right now, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But I don't know. I'm gonna go. I love Lantana. I think Lantana is so good, and mums love it. Like mums, I think every parent owns that movie on DVD.
Yep.
If you gave birth to a child in the 90s, you have that movie on DVD at some point. Like you said, La Paglia.
It deals with complicated themes of adulthood when you're a boomer and all that shit.
And the Lantana itself, what a great metaphor.
Yes, the plant that you just can't get off your trousers.
You just cannot get rid of it, and it sticks to you.
It sticks to your trousers, and you get caught.
Great cast. Leah Purcell was amazing in that film. I will say this is something I stand by. Every single role Jeffrey Rush ever played would be way better if Gary McDonald played it.
Okay.
I 100% believe it. Go through any movie you watch with Jeffrey Rush. Get an AI to create Gary McDonald. A lot of tech people here at South by Southwest. I would love to invest in this. If someone is out there that knows AI technology, some kind of deep fakery where we can just go back to every Jeffrey Rush movie, put Gary McDonald in there, I think it will be... we will make at least $1 million. $1 million, I guarantee you. $1 million.
That is Alexei Toliopoulos' answer to separating the art from the artist.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting a new artist. We get a new artist. Gary McDonald in every movie. Every time someone's cancelled, put Gary McDonald in.
Yeah, I like that.
Everybody loves that fella.
Yeah, until he gets cancelled, and then we move on.
Will never happen. Then if he does, you put me in. That's the backup plan.
Number 1, brother.
Number 1. It's actually my favorite movie of all time. My favorite number 1.
this is number one of the Australian film set in Sydney list, but you're saying this is number one of your list.
Yeah, number one, everything. My favourite number one.
I'm excited for this.
Be awesome. I was just like, yeah, Attack of the Clones. It's so awesome. No, my favorite movie. I love Looking for Alibrandi.
Yes.
Number one, all time.
Yeah.
Any category, number one. I never have felt more
Yeah.
seen than a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the silver screen is a portal to another world. Sometimes that silver screen is a mirror that looks back on your own life. And that's like the area that I grew up in. That's so much my life. When I watch that movie now, it's like looking at like my family photo album or something. It's just, it means so much to that movie. I'm gonna fucking cry thinking of this podcast about how much I love Looking for Alibrandi, but it's my favorite movie.
So for any internationals in the audience, it is a beautiful story about a young Italian girl, effectively...
Similar to myself, I guess.
Similar, yeah.
Not that far off.
Yeah, very, very close in age and interest as this young man.
Yes.
And
the HSC, I'm so scared about it. I'm freaking out about it every day. Oh my God.
HSC is scarier than
I'd
criminal rights.
love to get into Sydney Uni, please. Let me in with all my mates.
And she is dealing with class and xenophobia in Australia. She's on scholarship at one of the big Catholic schools in the eastern suburbs, and she faces a lot of bigotry and discrimination. Single mother.
She gets to fuck Kikari, dude. She gets to fuck Kikari. That's awesome. Everyone's dream. To lose your virginity to Kikari, my God.
Effie and I interviewed Kit Gary the other day about his new show at Court.
I hope you got to lose your virginity to him. I hope so.
Well, we asked him, we said, did you ever have an Italian girlfriend after this film? He goes, no, but I went through the suburbs. He goes, and I was a hit in Leichhardt.
Wasn't he was saying him and Drazik chased?
So
they
it
were
was
on
like
the beach and they chased by schoolgirls.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The ethnic
My
girl,
God, that is a dream.
teen
That was a dream.
idol. Oh yeah, so it was Drazik and Kit Gary, who are obviously sex icons for Southern European schoolgirls, were...
Which I am in my heart.
And they got chased off a beach in Manly.
Wow. The first Cronulla riot, basically. Wow.
The first riot was the opposite. There was too much love. That's an interesting one. It's a great, it's a love letter to Sydney in a sense as well, because it is somewhat of a bygone era. I was talking before, the city has become quite expensive. Not many single mothers live in a terrace house with their daughter and their nonna upstairs anymore. And if they do, they're very lucky. But yeah, and I can see why that resonated so well with you. I also fell in love with Pia Miranda as a young man.
Yeah, it's just a magnificent performance.
Yeah.
And she's like 27, playing 18. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And now she still looks the same. That movie came out like 100 years ago. It's crazy.
Now,
It's a beautiful movie, great performance, everything about it. I love it.
have you done the tour? Have you been to
I've lived the tour. I can do it. I'll take you on the tour. Let's go. I'll take you all right now. I know the Haberfield streets. I know where Melina Marchetta, the author, lives. I've been to her house. With her, I didn't. Oh my God. She let me in. I didn't just go crawling around. Yeah, I snuck in through the letterbox. I got real small, whittled my way through. But yeah, and also I love George Street. How you can see this. They go to the cinema. And it's like the Dendy, and you can see the big Planet Hollywood logo in the background.
Yeah, R.I.P.
That's awesome.
Now, we're going to allow you one special mention before we get one each.
Whoa. Gosh, one special mention. Okay, I didn't say The Boys. Rowan Woods, The Boys.
That's the opposite of a love letter to Sydney. That's probably hate mail to Sydney.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to chuck one negative one in there. But it's I think that movie is really interesting as a response to The Castle, about the darkness that lurks in Australian suburbs. So I think it's, not to be confused with the Amazon Prime superhero show.
No, The Boys is
very, very different.
Story of, and it's actually based on a few horrible crimes that happened in Sydney around that time. But it's interesting you say that it's kind of a mirror to The Castle. The Castle's all about larrikinism and dopey Australian men and love. This one's about extreme Australian male toxicity in its searing whitest heat. That's a big one. I didn't even think of that one, but it'd be pretty weird if you made that number one.
Yeah. That's why it's an honorable mention. Well, it's a good movie. Ron Wood's great director.
What about you, Effie? You get one.
All right. I'm a bit worried because I think mine are a bit more mainstream. I don't have
You're
a cool Artie.
You said the Matrix trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like this is lame.
Say it.
Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
I love Moulin Rouge. It's a beautiful movie. I have a little cry every time I watch it. Ewan McGregor, peak of his beautifulness.
That's a great film.
I love it. It's
What's they called? The Red Curtain trilogy.
The Red Curtain trilogy. Baz's Red Curtain trilogy.
Again, it's only a Sydney film by Alexei's rules because Moulin Rouge is set in Paris. But
they filmed it in Fox Studios. I think it counts.
It counts. I'm going to go with Erskineville Kings.
Whoa, Hugh Jackman.
Probably more of a special mention because you've named, or any number one I had was already in your list. Erskineville Kings is Hugh Jackman playing the role of a normal dude from Sydney is weird to watch.
Yeah.
And it's also, again, from that era.
Trying to get the claws out.
Yeah. When's he going to break in the boy from Oz? But I like that. Again, what we're saying, the nostalgia of Sydney. Similar era as Looking Pale of Brandy and set in Erskineville when Erskineville was basically the White Redfern. And to start a film, it's just preposterous to think now that you would start a film set in Erskineville in this day and age with the young bloke coming back from jackarooing in the Northern Territory because he had to get out. And the film starts with him coming back in a blue singlet.
Great look for Hugh. Wolverine's got to get a blue singlet, I reckon, the next time. Real Aussie vibes.
Wolverine or Logan. I thought that was what it was going to actually be.
He's gone back to Logan.
Yeah.
He's gone back to Logan.
I thought it was going to be set in Logan if we're wearing a blue singlet. Now, we have a microphone in the crowd, and I know we've activated You're in a Film Buff, so if anyone has any questions for this human encyclopedia.
Yeah, if there's a movie that you kind of remember from 25 years ago, describe it, I'll find it for you.
Any questions? Oh, we got one in the back corner here.
It's maybe a question as to whether or not Campbelltown falls into Sydney.
Yeah, let's count it, of course.
Well, the Southern Highlands sure aren't claiming it.
Idiot Box with Ben Mendelsohn,
Yeah.
John Paulson and the like.
David Caesar. He was my directing teacher at film school. Yeah, but only for like 3 days, so I don't know if I'm in the lineage of him, but I think Idiot Box is rocking. Yeah.
Right. That's your favourite?
Yeah, it's a belter.
Yeah. I haven't watched Idiot Box. That's one I'm going to have to look up. I mean, amongst the many others you mentioned. Any other questions?
Any other favourites?
Oh, we got a few.
Send them on. Whoa.
These guys are
The hands went wild.
Yeah.
We got a ride on our hands.
This is a semi-favourite. I don't know if animation counts, but Finding Nemo.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Never more exciting to see a Pixar animation movie set in Sydney.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And perhaps the only film ever in the history of Sydney that includes Kirribilli. There's no real reason to be there unless you're making something about Luna Park, but that's where the dentist was? Or yeah. No, good pick.
I don't know what it's called, so...
Oh, this is what he's here for.
Hang on, close my eyes, I'm logging in. Describe vividly, sir. Describe it vividly.
It was like there's a dark comedy about the Cronulla riots.
Down Under by Ed Forsyth. Yeah. Yeah.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Fat Pizza did it better in like season 5 because it was happening then and they did it. I think Fat Pizza season 5 rocks.
Yeah. Well, Fat Pizza, say what you want about them. They, I reckon, and this is something I learned from someone the other day, from a Greek guy that grew up watching them, similar to you, who said their depiction of white Aussie bogans is probably the most accurate we're going to get.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Jabba from Channel V.
Jabba from Channel V.
Yeah,
the VJ.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm from Perth, and probably the biggest thing that happened was when they did the Fat Pizza live stage show.
Whoa.
That opened with a burnout on the stage and just blew our tiny minds.
We need to bring it back.
Awesome.
We got to bring it back.
Yeah,
that is hectic. I don't know how the hell they let me do that.
I think they are still making it. They still got it on like Channel 7 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I've not seen it.
Yeah.
Because it's come back.
More a man of refined taste nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Would we call you a sellout?
Oh, yeah.
Nah.
I'd love to sell out.
Nah,
if anyone wants to make that software about Gary McDonald, that will be my sellout. That's what I really want to do. That's my career goal.
No, we've still got love for Ella Brandies, and so we're going to wrap it up now. We've kept you here longer than we could go for hours. I'm sure you could listen for hours. Alexei, where can they find you?
You can find me hanging around here. No, I've got my podcast, Special Features, with me and Cameron James. We talk about pop culture, and also me and Cam are like investigative documentarians. We made a series for YouTube called Finding Jesus. We basically solved one of the greatest unsolved mysteries on the internet. It was unsolved for 10 years, and we were first people to find a cracker. Yeah.
It's very funny. You should look into that. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your South by Southwest.
And yes, that concludes the last of our 3 live stage shows, I guess you could say, live podcasts from South by Southwest Sydney 2023. It was a great little junket down there. We had some great fun, and we spoke to some great people. We'll be back next year doing a lot more of that. But if you did like the podcast you just listened to, I know he's a favourite guest of ours, Alexei Toliopoulos. If you liked hearing him go full cinematic, he's got a brand new podcast called Sunburnt Screens coming out on November 23. That's a couple of days from now, where you'll get everything you just heard and more from Australia's greatest cinematic tastemaker. Here's a little taste of the trailer.
Hello, it's Alexei Toliopoulos here, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Sunburnt Screens, a brand new podcast that is a celebration of Australian cinema. As you know, it's my mission on Earth to introduce people to the films that they're going to love forever. And this podcast gives me a very special opportunity to introduce you to some rare gems and some classics of Australian cinema. Over this series, I'll be interviewing some of the cream of the crop, some of the best filmmakers this country has ever produced. Everyone from Gillian Armstrong to Rolf de Heer, the Spearig brothers, even the Ozploitation legend himself, Brian Trenchard Smith. And there are so many more. I've had so many great conversations with these filmmakers, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. We're going to kick things off in a few weeks by exploring a sinister side of cinema with Australian horror films. We're going to be looking at this great new wave that has emerged in this country over the last decade plus of wicked, weird, and wild horror movies. Everything from the Babadook to unearthed classics like Lake Mungo and The Tunnel, and of course that means covering modern classics like The Babadook, but also exploring around some perhaps films you've yet to hear about, or films that are resurging right now like Lake Mungo, and basically everything in between, and telling you what is happening in the future for this most dastardly of genres. But that's just the start. From there, I'll be guiding you on a mighty cinematic odyssey through some of my favorite films and meeting some of my favorite filmmakers. I hope you'll join me for Sunburnt Screens. We'll be here with you in just a few weeks' time, on the 23rd of November. What's even more exciting is this podcast is made in partnership with Umbrella Entertainment, one of the best distributors of Australian cinema, with one of the vastest libraries of Australian films. So, alongside this podcast, there is a brand new streaming service that they've opened up that library to for you, called Brolly. You'll be able to find many of the movies that we'll be looking at and discussing on that streaming service, and even more. So enjoy it, listen, and watch along on Brolly.